Hello and welcome. I am so glad you're here. I'm Beth, a creator-based coach with CMH Coaching for Life. I'm here today to help you and those you love create a life you feel grounded and at home in. Think of a life where you feel peace, love for those around you, and in a flow with just enough challenge to keep you happy and creating something wonderful. Sounds like magic, but it's not. You can create that life every single day. You can have a life full of love, excitement, hope, and creation. Our mission at CMH Coaching is to flood the earth with light through compassion, mindfulness, and hope. And I'm going to ask a favor of you. If you like what you see and hear today, think of someone you know that would enjoy and benefit from this message. Our mission is to flood the world with compassion, mindfulness, and hope. Share this with them. But for now, this is time just for you. So settle into whatever you're doing and enjoy this time with the girls, where we create that one awesome, amazing, perfect life every one of us is seeking.
Y'all just didn't want to cut me any slack. That's the thing. You just wanted me to be here.
I think it was just in the stars that I do this like professionally, and today it just was like not happening. So
Because there's always purpose behind it. There always is. So we'll find the lesson as we talk and as we go through, and it'll be good. And I'll just sit here and sip my tea.
there you
Thank
go.
you, Jaycine, for hosting.
Well, you guys, we've been talking about listening because May was listening month. And we were talking last week about people we know who are just amazing listeners. And today we have Jenn, who is just a gift to this whole world. It's so true. I was thinking, who is like the best listener I know? And it's Jenn. And I have known Jenn Jessica is 29. So you and I have known each other 28 years.
Exactly.
Wow.
Yes. Yes.
That is a happy thought.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
It's amazing. And our journeys just have been, we met each other and it was just this instant, like we knew each other from before. It just was
Connection.
Yeah, connection for sure. So I'll just tell you a little bit about Jenn. Jenn, like all of us, has lived life. And we each have our own struggles. We've talked about that ever since the beginning. That's why we have the 50-50 girl page. 50% of life is great and 50% of life
Is not as great.
Is not as great. It can be challenging. And Jenn has had challenges. She has been a oncology nurse for, oh my gosh, how many years were you in oncology?
Almost 50 years.
50.
Wow.
So amazing.
That is a real gift to be able to answer like that.
Mm-hmm. And a patient advocate during that. She just saw that there was a need, and the doctors weren't able to express everything that they needed to share with the patients. And Jenn came in and filled that gap and that need for several patients. And she's a friend to so many people. She's had challenges with her own health, with a car accident, with bouts of cancer, with losing her husband at, oh my gosh, 26 years ago this year, right?
It's actually 28.
Oh,
Wow.
Yeah, it's 28 this year.
oh my word. Yeah, just the love of her life. And so through all of this, Jenn, we want to talk about your listening skills. And so first of all, as you listen to your patients and friends and family, how did listening play a role in them being able to get the things that they need in life?
Well, I think kind of the way I'd like to start with this,
Yeah.
this to say, listening isn't a natural thing. There are more talkers in the world than there are listeners. And too often we are, have something to say about what someone's saying to us. And so we get out of the listening mode and we get into the response to their issues. But one of the things that we do as nurses, we are, part of our education is how to listen. Because if you don't listen, you can't hear what the patient really needs. And so that's one of the things that I've really appreciated about my profession. It doesn't mean, and just because someone says you're a good listener, doesn't mean you hear everything. And it doesn't mean that you hear, that you can hear what they're saying with body language, with words that might not be appropriate, because sometimes people just don't know how to express themselves. So you have to be listening all the time at a deeper level than just the words that are being said, I guess. And because if you can't hear what the patient's trying to say, or the person, family, friends, good examples, then you, and family, I think, is one of the hardest, because because those relationships are so complicated, we just react before we put the brakes on and and keep listening. So I think it's really critical to be able to communicate with people, but if you can't really hear them or know what they're saying or what they're really saying, then you don't have a connection. And without a connection, there's no real communication, and then therefore there's no moving forward. And hopefully that's one of the things that we're all about, is trying to help someone walk with someone from here to there.
How do they teach you how to listen? Like in nursing school, you said that's something they teach you. How do you learn?
Well, there are some very specific techniques, and I suppose a therapist has a lot deeper training than I ever had, but you have classes where you do role playing and you repeat what the person has just said. Do you remember the old game of telephone?
Oh, yeah.
Where you'd sit in a circle, and by the time it got even 3 or 4 people, it wasn't even close to what the person had said, because we were learning to be good listeners. We needed to learn to be good listeners. So what happens is that you don't say anything back to the person in a role-playing situation like that, except that, did I hear you say that this has been the most difficult part of your treatment? Did I hear you say that diagnosis is really knocked your socks off, or whatever, so that the person understands that you heard what they said? Because if you keep the conversation going without clarifying so that you can redirect, you might miss the whole opportunity to help them through whatever the distress is. And the more emotional the person is speaking, maybe the harder you have to listen, because, as I said, emotional things get kind of tied up with emotion. And so you have to, and you're squirming in your chair, or you're pulling away. That's, is this too hard to talk about? Or how can I make this easier? Because there are some really tough things to discuss. And sometimes you have to be a coach. And to coach someone to say the right things. Well, let's just, do some what ifs. You're waiting for a diagnosis. The days are going longer and longer, and you can't sleep at night because you don't know what's going on. You say, well, let's just kind of play this out. And then you can help, if because I know how hard it is for me as a person, it's often that hard, if not harder for others to wait to hear something. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, that makes a ton of sense.
Makes a lot of sense, and it's very wise. Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, anyway, I've never been called wise before, but anyway.
We'll just say it's a very wise thing to say.
Yes, yes, yes. And to try to, when people don't connect, they can't connect. It's because whatever the words that have been said have either not been heard or have been misinterpreted. And it's really important not to have misinterpretations, because it can take you down a wrong path that isn't helpful for either one of you.
Yeah, I love that. And like in your profession, did you see times when patients hadn't been listened to, and then you came in and were like, oh my gosh, that's not what they said?
Exactly. Oh my gosh. Sometimes when doctors were talking about ongoing treatment, well, this treatment, your tumor has continued to progress, so we need to change tactics, and we're going to try a new treatment. And is this something you want to do? And the patient usually often says yes, they're interested in continuing to fight. And then you come in or after the physician leaves, you say, now, do you understand about what's happening? What did you hear? Well, I think you can cure me now with this new treatment. Okay, well, I'm not sure that's what I heard. I heard that there's another treatment, but what is it you would like to know about that new treatment to help you decide whether you want to do it or not, or how to do it, or how's the best way?
Mm-hmm.
And I think the whole, especially with a diagnosis of cancer and treatment of cancer, it's very hard. Doctors often don't talk about cure, but patients often hear cure when it's not said.
That's what we want, right?
Yeah,
we want to be cured.
Yeah. And so, that's a really tricky road to go down. It's a very important road to go down. I've had patients that, have had 3 or 4 kinds of treatments, and we're doing something else to help with pain management. And they're ready to start a new chemotherapy, for instance, when their current radiation therapy is, and they're going to do that at great physical and emotional cost, and probably out-of-pocket costs also. And they're doing it because the doctor wouldn't offer something if it wasn't for cure, would he? Well, as a matter of fact, we're not curing all cancers yet. We will, but not yet. And so what does that mean? There's so many ways to think about it. I think, being a cancer patient myself, about halfway through my career, I have my own ways of looking at things which aren't necessarily helpful because I have too much information. But I search out providers that will listen, because I think that's one of the most important things one can do. You want to be heard. At least I want to be heard.
And it's okay to search out a provider that will listen to you, right? It's okay. You don't feel heard to say, I just don't think this is a good fit.
Yes. Well, often, almost always, you don't even have to have that conversation with somebody. And because that is not everybody, but most people want to be good patients. And a good patient doesn't just leave the doctor. But if you're not communicating, this is your life. You deserve to be heard. And if something isn't going quite right, then let's make it go quite right. let's reset this. And I've helped people. I've helped several people write notes to doctors because, they're so afraid of hurting their feelings. Well, what about your feelings? You weren't heard. You don't have to rub their nose in it, but you have to say, yeah, this probably just wasn't the best fit. And, that's a lot easier to do when you're in a big city and there are other options. When you have only one or two cancer doctors around, that's a little harder. But sometimes I would go along as an advocate in a situation and just say, Doctor, I think this is what she was trying to say. Is that what you heard? Well, no, that's not what I heard. Okay.
Oh.
Well, let's try again. So you help people be their own advocate, knowing that that's the hardest job of all. And if that doesn't work, then you accompanying them. Go to the appointments with them, make it work for them so that they feel they can be heard.
And that's something you're really good at, because I know that you've had a lot of friends and you have been a patient advocate for your friends. Yeah. Yes. And you continue to do that even today. I call you Jane.
Yeah,
I
think it's important to do that. If, our medical system especially is pretty difficult to navigate. And so there are some tricks that you learn as you work in the system. And then as you're a patient in the system, you learn things that work for you. And they might be helpful for other people. That's not necessary. Listening is always important, but, just navigating. If you don't want to wait 2 weeks for the next appointment, then you call every morning and say, any cancellations today? I'm available.
Squeaky wheel.
Yeah, it is, but it's a nice squeaky wheel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so that kind of leads us to listening to yourself, because you have had to listen to yourself, which has helped you help others listen to themselves.
Mhm.
So can you speak to that journey? How have you learned to listen to yourself, and what does that look like and feel like to you?
Well, that's a difficult thing to try to identify, but you're exactly right. If you can't hear yourself, you can't hear anybody. And believe me, for the first probably 25, 30 years of my life, I didn't know I was to be listened to. You get a gut feeling about something, which is one form of listening to yourself, but it's much more than that. And with my last diagnosis, for instance, I decided, since it was not relatively, it was, as the medical literature said, an abysmal prognosis. Well, that's really not something you want associated with yourself or anybody for that matter. But so I decided, in order to get my thinking clear, I literally sat down and made a list of the pros and cons of having a terminal illness. And that may just sound really crazy to some people, but that's how I was able to communicate with myself.
Mm-hmm.
And it brought a peace and an understanding that allowed me to get out of bed in the morning and do what I needed to do. Quite fortunately, I'm still alive, and I'm very blessed to be there. And I'm also very aware that God isn't done with me on earth. And so I think that we'll talk about that aspect of it too, but listening to yourself is really important. The question is, how do you put yourself in such an environment or a position where you can allow yourself to be heard?
Great question.
And I do that through prayer.
Mm-hmm.
And I ask for the peace and the understanding that I need from God to be aware of me. And that's when I got the idea. I've never known anyone who's made a list of pros and cons of a terminal illness, but there are some really pretty terrific pros. You don't have to worry about living long enough to get joint replacement, dementia, have your eyes go blind, go deaf. Just so many things that, you could, and when I was diagnosed 3 years ago, the last diagnosis, which was the most critical of all of them, I just didn't think I could go on with politics one more day.
Mm.
The political environment and all the things that are happening in the world. And you just think, I can't fix those here on earth. So I'm not going to give any more time or energy to them. And that was freeing to me. But that was my way of listening to my body and listening to myself, my inner self. And
I remember the call when you called to tell me, because you were going through with the treatment, but you were preparing to leave this earth, to die.
Yes, absolutely.
And you cleaned out your house. You gave away your patio furniture. You gave away, because the prognosis really was dismal.
6 to 10 months.
And
so when it came back at 12 months, I thought, I'm not sure I'm going to do this treatment again, but maybe I'll give it one more shot. And even then, as I was listening to the people that were taking care of me, the huge blessing was they were all people I knew and highly respected. And some of them I just loved because they had been important people in my life in other roles. So yeah. And I wasn't quite done, but through miracle of miracles, God isn't done either. And he still is the ultimate. I don't want to say in this situation that he's really the judge, but he is, he has plans. And I try very, very hard to listen to him. And that's probably been the biggest piece for me is knowing that I have a connection with God and that it brings me a lot of peace just to relax and step back. And he says, this is your life, your choice. Try it. If it doesn't go well, you can always stop it. If it does go well, you'll be there to live your life longer. So, I listen to God all the time.
So you're listening also to how to, you're learning to live again, right?
Yes.
That has to be a whole different, when you're prepared to go, and then having to learn to listen and continue on. Tell us about that.
Well, that is really crazy. It is, because I am so grateful to still be here. But
I'm grateful you're here.
Well, thank you. I don't know. There's still a part of me that says, why am I doing so well? And so many other people that have parents with young children and children themselves can get this kind of cancer and they don't have long to live. And why is it I'm still here? Well, again, that's between God and I don't try to understand him. I'm grateful and thankful that it's going well. Whether or not I'll, I don't know, you make financial decisions based on the fact that you're not going to be here, and you make decisions about, on the list of pros, you can help some family members that need some, some help, and that'll be good. When you're gone, they can have a little something that'll help support them in their futures. And then you realize, doggone it, I can't do that because the government works against you with the tax situation, and you don't want to be distributing all of your money and have then nothing to live on. So, I mean, there are just so many aspects of still being here.
It's a lot of listening, right? Listening,
yeah,
searching it out, listening.
it is. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
One of my physicians is retiring, and I've written a note to him asking if before the end of June, if I could either see him or talk to him on the phone or have a Zoom virtual meeting, whatever works for him. But I just have some questions. Out of all the people I'm seeing, he has more experience in this area than I do, certainly than I do, but all the physicians, he probably has the most experience working with this diagnosis. So I would just kind of like to have an exit interview. I've asked him in the past to help me talk to me about this, and he said, oh no, we're not going there.
Oh. Oh.
Loud and clear. And for 3 years now, I haven't asked him any questions, but before he leaves, I mean, he's not leaving. I know where he lives. I just need to have, and that was, that came as a result of a prayer. It's okay to ask again, even though he really heard me and was, concerned that because we are friends, he didn't want to have that conversation with me. He wanted me to have that with somebody else. And I'm still looking for that somebody else. But maybe he'll, I'll send him the list of questions ahead of time. So I don't guard, but oh golly.
Oh my word.
But one of the other things that happened when I was trying to figure out how to live again was to say, golly, I haven't done a literature search for 3 years. And I had some very specific treatments and with very specific drugs. And maybe it's time to look at the literature again and see, is the survival data still the same? And I have a PhD nurse, retired colleague on the East Coast, and she's excellent at literature reviews. So when I asked her to run another list, she did. And in all honesty, the survival for patients with, I don't think they're going to say it's an abysmal prognosis anymore. So maybe I am one of those folks on the tail end of the curve that maybe can continue to live.
Wow.
So, yeah, I don't allow myself to think that very often, but you have to be open. And again, it's a matter of listening to new information. And this is data, scientific data, which is different than listening for God or listening for direction. But he does absolutely answer prayers. And just when I think I'm stuck on something, I get a peace and an understanding that I didn't have before, I guess is the best way to explain it.
That's such a good way to explain it. And I love how you have learned. I've watched you were the first person I ever heard this from, and it's like stuck in my mind. And it was Jaycine, let go, let God. Just let go, let God. And I knew where you were in your life because Jean, guys, Jean, if you can't tell, she's highly intelligent. She plans everything. She has lists. She has, yes. It's highly organized. If you need something done, she will organize it in such a way that it is just smooth. And anyway, so letting go and letting God, I have seen and heard you talk about that so often. And how hard has that been? Or do you think you're getting better at that? Do you think it gets easier?
It's always easy to let go, to let God. It's harder to let go. And so, if it's in a real emotional issue and I'm just struggling with it, and those are usually family issues, which are really the foundation in life. So they are some of the most important relationships you'll ever have. But there's a different level of emotion tied up with those kinds of relationships. And to step away from yourself and just let it go, not try to fix it, because God knows how to fix it. Yes, I know what's best for one of my sisters. I know what's best for this. I don't know. I'm fooling myself. And God just laughs, Well, you could try that. Wouldn't be what I'd recommend, but you could try that. So it's, just listening for God, I guess, let go and listen for God.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Great. What role does listening have in your being able to let go? When you really don't want to let go, how do you use your listening skills and have that happen?
See, this gets back to my initial thing. You have to be able to listen to yourself.
Yeah.
And so you have to say, who made you the expert in this field? And you need to essentially kind of push your own buttons and say, how did you get here? And where is it you want to go? And can you do it alone? No, you can't. So you have to go back to listen to yourself and just say, so you've tried this. Where's that gotten you? That didn't work. So we'll try it again.
I love that. And so you kind of listen on all levels. You're listening to yourself, and then you're listening to God, and you're allowing all of those things to help you let go.
Yes, absolutely.
As that all processes.
Yes. But I think when Jaycine says, does it get easier? It always depends on the situation. But yes, I do think when you see the work of God unfolding before you in a way that you had was not on my list of options, because he's the creator, and it's a matter of trust. It's a matter of trust, and you see it working, and you just say, I would still be struggling with this if I hadn't been able to force myself. And sometimes it is just forcing myself to let go and just let the peace enter. And as we all know, God doesn't answer overnight. Sometimes these are pretty complicated issues. And I think the other thing is being able to break things down into a manageable issue. Like I've never prayed to God for a cure. To me, that's not his job. His job is to walk with me, whatever the path is. And he's created some wonderful doctors and some wonderful treatments, wonderful from the standpoint of allowing me to still be here, not necessarily in terms of side effects, but yes, you have to, it's just kind of a mindset. And, it's very interesting. I live by myself, and there are times when I actually find myself talking to myself. And older people do that, but I'm not that old.
I've always done that.
Yeah, no, it's smart people that do that. Smart people talk to themselves.
Thank you. Because sometimes you don't know what you're thinking till you hear yourself say it. And that's again, another hurdle you can overcome if you're just willing to speak. And sometimes that's the best way to go. I don't know. Life wasn't meant to be easy, but it doesn't have to be as hard as we make it. And almost always we're the ones making it harder than it needs to be. So that's, I don't know whether that's it's because we think we need to fix it, and we don't.
Well, we stop listening and we start doing.
Exactly. That is our biggest concern, and that it doesn't help us or anyone for that matter. Yeah. Just kind of there are lots of things that come to mind, but it really is absolutely a listening, being able to hear whatever message is being passed by whichever way. Sometimes it's when I'm listening to music that I can hear things. Sometimes I am in the middle of a meditation or in the middle of a prayer. But it's almost always a quiet and peaceful, supportive time. And sometimes the hardest thing of all is to find that opportunity to set some time aside to let go, to be able to hear him. So yeah, it's a challenge, but absolutely worth every bit of it.
I love
And
that.
I love the idea of setting time aside for listening sessions. To put yourself in that place. Yeah.
Right. Sometimes you start with just listening to yourself. How do you all feel? Is something going on? Well, if something's going on, usually it's because I've made a bad choice or a bad response. I tried to fix something that wasn't mine to fix. And I need to just step back and let it unfold and trust in the Lord. He's always there. So,
well, and I find that when I step back and I let it unfold and trust in the Lord, that it's really entertaining.
It can be.
You can let go of a lot of that and just be able to enjoy the ride at that point.
Yes. And then celebrate the fruits of his labor.
Yes, exactly.
So to speak. Yeah. No,
I feel so much better.
But there is no magic formula for it. And once you've learned about it and how to do it, it doesn't mean you can always do it. Yes, you always have the ability to do it. And the only thing that gets in your way is yourself. So you just have to keep reminding yourself that you're not in charge. And that's when the let go, let God really works. And then that helps me reframe my thinking and turns on my listening ears again. And whatever the cues are, you have to be ready. Yep.
Man, I needed that advice so much, Jean. Just like when raising the kids and, with Mark's being a police officer and all of that stuff, just being able to have somebody amazing like Jean in your life. And you guys have those friends that listen and that will impart their wisdom or, not on you, but they'll share that wisdom with you. And I remember just being in Jean's kitchen and she would just say, it's really hard to let go. It's really hard to let God just do this because that wasn't my plan. And I just, being the recipient of that has just seeped into my every fiber of my being. And it's helped me in situations because I love to have control. And I just don't. I think the older we get, the more we realize that, man, we can't control life. We just can't.
Right. And in the world, the scheme of things, we're really not all that important. I think that's part of it for me. And, I'm just one of the soldiers going through life and, onward Christian soldiers. But not everybody can be the chief, and so we need to remember that we're not really in charge because we come up, although there are many, many, many examples of people, of things that have happened to people, like today, just when I was standing in line helping one of my friends. I went to a funeral this morning of someone I worked with 30 years ago, but she was part of a breakfast group that I go to too. And I really appreciated her loving, tender care that she provided as a patient aide in our oncology unit. She was just terrific, very gentle, very loving, very caring. And, I'm, the person ahead of me in the beverage line was saying, well, don't you have some decaf coffee? She's in her mid 80s now. And they said, no, we don't have any decaf coffee. And I said, there's a whole dispenser of decaffeinated product right here. It's water. I'd be glad to get it for you. And she said, but I'm cold. And I said, well, then get a half a cup of coffee and hold on to it. You don't have to drink it, And she said, where did you get that? Where did you get that? I said, come on, Evelyn, we're both nurses. I just think that way. But I said, here I am in a Catholic church. I said, I think God said, just hold on to the cup. It'll warm you right up. I said, I have no idea where that came from. So it's a God thing.
It's a God thing. I love that.
Yeah, it's a God thing.
I love that.
But she really wanted to know how I thought of that. I said, golly, Evelyn, this is the most beautiful. So it's the brand new, well, it's not brand new. It's probably 10 years old. San Juan Diego Catholic Church. Do you know? In the off West Union on Springville Road, just across from Peace. It is the most gorgeous church I've ever been in. And I'd never been in it before. So anyway,
wow.
They let me come. They don't feed me, because I'm not Catholic. But that's okay. I didn't need that little wafer. I had some of their decaffeinated fluid. That was fine with me. A cup of water. Anyway.
Oh my gosh.
You do what you can.
You do. You do. Oh, Jean, thank you so much for sharing with us. And
it's been wonderful. Thank you.
Well, I hope that, I don't really see myself as a whatever. What I am is a survivor of life. And my way isn't the right way. My way is my way. And it's not right for everybody. But thank goodness I have dear friends like Jaycine that help keep me on track too. It's not a one-way street by any means.
Yeah, but thank goodness that you are a lifelong learner
absolutely.
Yes, that's really your gift.
I tell people all the time, you just have to keep your head and your heart open because you never know what's going to crawl in.
Yeah.
You need to be ready for it. And it's almost always good. The bad things come through the back door, but whatever that is.
Yeah.
But if you just keep your head and heart open, you'll end up in a better place. So anyway, so nice to meet all of you.
Oh, and we are really blessed for having had you here. Thank you again for coming.
You're most welcome. You're most welcome. Okay. Are we done?
Okay, hang out for just a minute. We're going to just talk about what we've got coming up, and
sure.
Just for a couple minutes. So today, this was a treat. Oh my gosh, this is a treat. Thank you guys so much. And tomorrow we have Coaching Clear at 1:30 Central. You should come join us sometime, Jean. I think you would enjoy it.
I think I would.
Fun. Yeah. And then Wednesday, Jaycine, you've got book club. Yeah. You want to tell us about book club?
We are not meeting this Wednesday. We're going, since I'm doing business travel. So we will be starting the following week, which is, I thought it was the first, but it's the 31st. So it is the last Wednesday, holy smokes, in May. Yes. You got it, Jen.
I got it in the mail. Thank you.
You're welcome. So it's by Panache Desai. You Are Enough. And we're just going to be discussing the first probably 2 to 3 chapters. So of You Are Enough. And I love the beginnings of it. In fact, I'll just share if I can just share just a little bit in his prefix or introduction. There's a part that I really love. This is terrible. I should have been prepared.
Gives us more time to listen.
Yes. Right?
Get ready to listen.
That's right.
Oh man. Let's find it, Jaycine. Well, I'm sorry, guys. I had it. I thought I marked and now I can't find it. Here's part
Maybe it's-
I really do
if you-
love. There is only ever one choice. Either you are living from your heart, which is what Jean was talking about, and moving toward your limitless potential, or you are continuing to live in fear and limitation. It is knowing who you are fully and authentically. It is illumination and recognition, a union. It is what we all crave at the deepest level of being. It is your essential self, which is one with God. So,
Amen.
Amen to that one. Absolutely.
Yes. So we're excited to get into that, guys. You are enough.
That's
And so are you.
beautiful.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay.
So that's a week from Wednesday. No book club tomorrow, but the
Correct.
following Wednesday we'll start You Are Enough. And then that same weekend, Jen, that's when you're teaching your workshop. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Interesting enough, it's about listening to your body and what the deeper emotional issues are behind the physical ailments and pains and things that are being communicated. That if we address those things and come to peace on that level, then the body then can restore itself as much as it can. So we're going to be talking about that.
Love
That
it.
is a great workshop. Yes, that'll be great. And of course, we have coach training on Thursday. So we'll be getting together there as well. But this is wonderful. And then next Monday, we'll come back and we'll talk one last time about listening. And then when we get going for June, our new theme is compassion. So we've got a whole month of beautiful compassion and love and learning there as well. Y'all, thank you so much for being here. It's been so good. And thank you especially, Jean and Jaycine, for all of that. So till next week.
Bye, guys.
There.
I can choose to be happy, choose to be free, moment by moment. It's all up to me, 'cause what I think about, I bring about. That's the way it is, and there is no doubt. Day by day, I pave the way with every little thought I think.
Joining us today in a creator-based life. I hope you felt that compassion, mindfulness, and hope you came seeking today. You can find more of it at cmhcoaching.com or on linktree/cmhcoaching. Of course, any social media outlet, we're there too. Because you felt the benefit and light in this message, please invite those you care deeply about to join us. Help us to create a ripple effect across the globe of compassion, mindfulness, and hope. Then we can create a creator-based life together. Have a great week, y'all. We'll talk to you soon.
Day by day, I pave the way with every little thought I think. Whoa.